Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Devin, thanks for joining us today on Business Ninjas. We're happy to have you on the show and learn more about the company. So we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Welcome. It's a pleasure.
Right on. Maybe we could just knock out some of the basics first. So, where are you folks based? What's the website that people can find you at? What's the company name? All the basics. First of all, let's get those done.
Sounds good. So our organization is Encepta. We're based in Western Canada, pretty heavily weighted across BC and Alberta, and we're active from here to Ontario. Our website is www.encepta.net. That's ENCEPTA.net. And that's a great way to learn more about us.
Great. All right. And maybe you can give us some background on what your career arc has been in bringing you to Encepta now and what that journey's been like.
Sure. It's I'm one of those people who's had a bit of an eclectic kind of past and background, dabbled in a number of different experiences that I think ultimately helped me sort of build the skill set to be a founding force in our organization. So I'm kind of from an engineering background, a fairly technical and kind of hands-on person. I've always been sort of taking apart the toaster and fixing vehicles, and then had some really interesting experience in the manufacturing world, manufacturing soft goods, survival suits, anti-gravity suits for the fighter pilots, that kind of stuff.
Wow.
And I've also done some research with fiber optics, putting those inside cadaveric human hips to try to measure the contact force between femur and pelvis. So all of those things have been really interesting little bits of experience and developing skills to ultimately help found a technology-enabled services firm, which is what Encepta is today.
Wow. Okay. And so then bridging off of that, what was the origin story for the company, given that diverse array of experiences that you have had? How did you center in on this to pick as the adventure you were going to pursue?
When I was doing the fiber optics research project, I was in university, and I happened to get introduced to a startup incubator accelerator called the Alacrity Foundation, which an amazing group to go and take a look at. They involved all around the world in helping to start more technology businesses, typically software as a service and technology-oriented firms. So I had an opportunity to join an accelerator, and it was really a situation where you could sort of join as a bright, motivated entrepreneurial person without necessarily a firm idea in mind. And the program helped to partner us up with industries and opportunities and a bit of startup funding so we could take a crack at it. And if we could launch and fly the nest, we built a business and we charged off into the future. So it was through the Alacrity Foundation and getting introduced to the telecom market that really Encepta was able to be founded.
Wow. Okay, that's wild. So it sounds like there's a lot of latitude to explore things there. And so what is the industry and niche that you picked and focused on for people that don't know the company? Maybe you can give us some background on kind of what the core aspects of the company are.
Yeah, that sounds great. So the core of the clients and customers that we still service today, where we got started, is the telecommunications world. So typically, like the carriers, the network operators, the folks that are providing the internet, powering the cell phones, those would be the people that we engage with. And our earliest projects and opportunities that we worked on really had a lot to do with, I've got a lot of assets or a lot of plant or a lot of things out there on the map, and I kind of have lost track of some of the important information about them. But it's very hard and difficult to sort of go collect and fix that stuff. How could I get that stuff fixed? And how could you make it easy for me? That was really kind of the early nugget that we latched onto. And over the years, we've grown from kind of doing a very specialist, early startup kind of idea to providing a really deep breadth of services for these clients and carriers. And ultimately, like the thing that we get out of bed every day for is helping to steer innovation and steer the deployment of these essential connectivity services by the carriers and the network operators, and less by inventing the boxes that kind of go up on the telephone poles and the gadgets that power the network, but more in steering innovation and providing thought leadership kind of in the area of these are really long, complicated projects with lots of moving parts and a lot of complexity and kind of deploying stuff all over the place and sort of dealing with the nuances and logistics of all that. That kind of is where we really excel. How do you sort of do that very complicated process in a nice, coordinated, effective manner? And how do you generate lots of insightful information along the way to really guide the performance of that process and kind of go from it being a tough, challenging, arduous experience to a nice, smooth, easy flowing, successful deployment?
Right. Interesting. And then based off of that, how are you, it sounds like you found a different way to approach this problem than maybe the incumbents had done, or whether it was just inertia that the companies had as a strategy. So how have you kind of separated yourselves out from the model that existed when you first came upon the space?
I think a lot of the folks that we work with on a regular basis kind of joke about us being sort of like the app people and the tech people. But I think there's kind of some merit there. It's the industry that we're in, this kind of telecommunications, outside plant contracting, is kind of a very sort of traditional paper-based kind of industry. There's a lot of interface with the construction world, and that's a very sort of paper-based, phone calls, text messages, that kind of thing. And so we've really figured out a great way, especially when it pertains to field services, to workers that are out there like doing tasks, kind of, and just about any geography. We found a really successful kind of thought and execution pattern where we tend to try to push the whole everyday work solution into a technology platform, and then we use all the metadata that you get when your people are working in a system to really guide performance and understand what's happening. And we have kind of found a way to take the kinds of tasks that you would typically get sort of like a 30-year industry expert to go out with a new person on day one, sort of like, I'll show you how to do it, then I'll watch you do it, and then once you kind of get my sign off, then you can go do the task kind of on your own, without me here looking over your shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
We figured out how to sort of grab that insight and knowledge, like that expert knows, like, hey, when you see one of these over here, usually you turn around and kick the bushes over, and there's one of these other things behind you. That's kind of like the tip and trick. We figured out how to embed that sort of expert knowledge into the endpoints and into the platform that the person uses on their phone or their tablet, so that you don't have to have that industry expert anymore. You kind of get their knowledge, applied in a scalable way, so that they can sort of, oversee automatically a whole group of people performing these tasks. And that's really helped accelerate our business, because like the learning curve goes down to a couple days, the quality goes up, and you're able to do the projects really predictably and on time.
Uh-huh. And so that, circling back, you said that you had kind of launched with an initial vision of where you were going, and that now it sounds like you've clearly grown from there. So what was that arc like? How did you kind of take the initial thing and start to scale on that and then widen out?
Sure. I think the very beginning of the business was really focused around a demand-driven concept. So, talk to the marketplace and talk to clients or potential clients and listen to their problems, and then, solve a particular problem. And that should be like kind of like an automatic business opportunity, because you did exactly what everyone was asking of you.
Mm-hmm.
So that is kind of how we started our earliest opportunities. And through being successful kind of in this area of field services and being really proficient at executing these challenging projects and producing really great information to go back in the corporate record, that sort of led to a series of referrals and conversations with all the other groups that also are touched by these field services. So, often field services are sort of survey or planning or things in the early part of like a design build process. Well, once you get into the design, you need to kind of get detailed measurements about infrastructure to complete it. And then once you get into the build, you need to know exactly what's happened at each one of the job sites and which is one of the locations, and be able to sort of capture quality documentation and photos and locations and checklists and all that kind of stuff. So really kind of that early skill set in being able to deal well with, dots and information on a map and get it all the way back into a useful place for the rest of time into corporate records. That actually applies in a whole bunch of different parts of a long, complex value chain. So we kind of have just, walked around that value chain and been able to kind of leverage the same strengths in a bunch of those different areas. And now we actually do the entire value chain in many cases.
Wow.
For this stuff.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Well, given the trajectory you're on, I'm sure you're going to find new things to expand upon in the coming quarters. It sounds like you're on quite a path there. So thanks a bunch for coming on to the podcast. We appreciate it. Maybe you can let folks know how they can contact you.
Yeah, that sounds good. And it's been a pleasure chatting. Our corporate website, Encepta.net, great place to stay current on what's going on. And there's a contact us page there. Also finding myself, Devin Bouchard, on places like LinkedIn, another great way to reach out to me, or search some other team members and please reach out to them. So thank you.
Right on. All right. Well, thanks a bunch. We appreciate it.
Likewise.